Okay, let's unpack one of gardening's most persistent and, frankly, most misunderstood foes, powdery mildew.
Hmm.
That familiar white film on leaves, stems, even flower buds? I mean, we've all encountered it, right?
Absolutely. It's almost a rite of passage for gardeners.
Yeah, but here's the kicker. Much of what we think we know about it, a lot of that, conventional advice, it's actually wrong.
That's right. There's a surprising amount of misinformation out there.
So our mission today really is to cut through all that noise. I'm genuinely curious to examine what powdery mildew truly is, whether and how we should even bother treating it, and what the real research-backed strategies are for our gardens.
Good plan.
Consider this your personal guide to genuinely understanding this pervasive issue, helping you get truly clued in.
Let's dive in.
So to start, what is this stuff? At its heart, powdery mildew is a fungal infection, a disease like many others in the garden.
Yep. Fungal?
It works like this. Microscopic spores land on your plant's leaves. Once they find a good spot, they germinate, much like a seed would. But instead of growing roots into the soil, this root burrows directly into the leaf itself, becoming a tiny parasite.
Yeah, it taps right in.
It then starts sucking out the plant's vital juices, using the leaf as its personal buffet. As you can imagine, this damages the leaf, making the entire plant less productive.
It definitely weakens the plant over time.
Visually, it's unmistakable. That distinctive white, powdery film, often starting as tiny specks that then grow and spread, eventually covering entire leaves. I swear, every year I look at my zucchini, hoping this time it will be immune, but there it always is.
Ah, yes. Zucchini and squash are classic targets. But what's really fascinating here is that as gardeners, we often talk about powdery mildew as one single disease, as if all white powdery patches are the same thing.
Right, you just call it powdery mildew.
Exactly. But that's just not true, and it's a really crucial distinction. The key insight is that almost every species of plant that gets powdery mildew is actually infected by a different type of fungi.
Oh, wow, okay.
Think of it this way. The powdery mildew you might see on your prized roses will absolutely not infect your beautiful lilac. They are completely different species of fungi, specific to their hosts.
So they're like, specialists.
Precisely. Very specialized. This has a huge implication for you, the listener. It immediately relieves a very common anxiety many gardeners have.
Mm-hmm.
The fear that if one plant gets powdery mildew, it's just going to sweep through your entire garden, infecting everything in its path.
Yeah, that's definitely a fear. You see it on one thing and think, oh no, here it comes.
But that's simply not how it works. It's quite specific to the plant it grows on. So while you might have it on your zucchini, your tomatoes next door are likely safe from that particular strain.
That is a huge relief, actually. But it also makes me wonder, if the fungi are so host-specific, why is that widespread fear, that sort of garden-wide pandemic idea, such a common anxiety among gardeners?
That's a good question. I think part of it is just seeing the white stuff spread on the one plant and assuming it can jump anywhere. Plus, different plants can get their own powdery mildew simultaneously, making it look like a general outbreak.
Okay, that makes sense. This specificity also helps explain why there's so much conflicting advice on preventing powdery mildew.
Exactly. If you don't know which fungus you're dealing with, how can you apply the right prevention?
Right. So let's unpack some of the most common recommendations and see how they truly stand up to scrutiny.
Absolutely. There are several pieces of advice that circulate widely, and while some have a grain of truth, others are quite misleading, especially when we consider the specifics of these varied fungi.
Okay, where should we start?
Let's start with a common belief. Keep plants well watered to prevent powdery mildew.
Right, healthy plants fight disease better. Makes sense on the surface.
It does. And ensuring overall plant health is always crucial. A strong, hydrated plant is indeed better able to fend off many invaders. But the direct link between watering practices and preventing powdery mildew specifically is often misunderstood.
How so?
Healthy plants are more resilient, generally, but the specific conditions the fungus likes can sometimes challenge this general advice when applied directly to preventing the mildew itself. Water stress isn't usually the main driver for this particular fungus.
Okay. What about the classic avoid overhead watering? I hear that one all the time.
Yes, the popular belief here is that getting leaves wet increases the humidity around them, and high humidity encourages fungal growth.
Seems logical. Fungus likes damp, right?
Well, yes and no. This is where the nuance of powdery mildew really matters. The conditions that actually favor powdery mildew development are often high humidity at night and low humidity during the day.
Oh, okay. That's specific.
Very. So if you water overhead in the morning, the leaves get wet, but then the sun and wind usually dry them pretty quickly. In fact, that brief period of wetness might actually help prevent the fungus by washing away spores or disrupting germination, rather than encouraging its growth.
Huh. So morning overhead watering might be okay, or even good.
It's possible.
Yeah.
And frankly, watering only increases humidity for a very short period right near the plant. Wind disperses it fast. So I honestly don't think overhead watering makes much difference for powdery mildew. Maybe even helps sometimes.
Wow. Okay, myth busted, potentially. What's next?
Next up, we often hear prune to open up the interior of shrubs and trees for better air movement.
Right, the idea is to reduce humidity inside the plant canopy.
Exactly. The idea is that improving air circulation reduces humidity. But again, given that low humidity during the day favors spore dispersal and sometimes infection for certain mildews, pruning may not have much effect on the fungus itself.
So less humidity during the day might actually help it spread.
For some types, yes, that's when spores tend to get released. While pruning is certainly a good idea for preventing other diseases that thrive in stagnant, humid conditions, its impact on powdery mildew specifically is less clear-cut. It's probably still good practice for overall plant health, just maybe not a silver bullet for mildew.
Got it. Good for the plant, maybe not so much for this specific fungus.
Precisely. And finally, there's the advice to remove infected plant material.
Yeah, get rid of the diseased leaves to stop it spreading. Seems obvious.
It does seem logical. The idea is this reduces the number of new fungus spores, theoretically stopping the spread. But there are a couple of significant problems.
Okay.
Firstly, it's practically impossible to remove all the microscopic spores. They're everywhere.
True.
Secondly, and perhaps more importantly, when you remove even partially infected leaves, you're reducing the plant's capacity for photosynthesis, that essential process by which it makes its own food from sunlight.
Ah, so you're taking away its energy source while it's already under attack.
Exactly. While the mildew may affect efficiency, that leaf is often still contributing something. Therefore, current understanding suggests it's generally only beneficial to remove leaves that are heavily infected and clearly no longer viable or beneficial to the plant's overall health. A little bit of mildew. Maybe just leave it.
Wow, that really turns a lot of garden folklore on its head. It sounds like many of our well-intentioned efforts might not be as effective as we think, or could even be counterproductive sometimes.
That's often the case, yeah. The reality is more complex than the simple rules suggest.
So, if much of the conventional wisdom is questionable, what is our most effective defense against powdery mildew, according to the research?
Your strongest proactive measure, by far, is planting resistant varieties. Breeders are constantly working to develop plants that can better withstand these specific fungi.
Okay, so choosing the right plant from the start.
That's the best bet. However, and this is an important caveat, even resistant varieties aren't always foolproof.
Right, nothing's ever 100% in gardening.
Exactly. Take summer phlox, for example. It's notorious for powdery mildew infection, and a variety called David is widely reported to be resistant.
I've heard of that one.
But, as we've learned, that resistance isn't universal. It doesn't always hold up in every garden in every microclimate. I've seen David get mildew plenty of times.
So resistance is relative, not absolute.
Very much so. A resistant cultivar is a great starting point, definitely reduces the problem. But don't be shocked if it still occasionally succumbs under the right conditions.
Okay. So what does this all mean when you've, already spotted that telltale white film? It's too late for resistant varieties at that point. Can you truly get rid of powdery mildew once it's set in?
This is where we hit a tough truth. Once leaves are infected, you actually can't get rid of the existing infection. The fungus has already burrowed in.
You can't, wash it off or kill it in the leaf.
Not really, no. The visible white stuff is mostly spores and the surface growth, but the actual feeding structure is inside the leaf cells. At best, you can stop further spread of the spores to other parts of the plant or to new growth.
Okay, so damage control, not a cure.
Exactly. And this is critical. You need to act fast as soon as you see the first signs of infection to have any hope of managing it effectively. Don't wait until the whole plant is white.
Right. Urgency is key.
It really is. This raises an important question. If you can't undo existing damage, what can you actually do to stop its spread?
Yeah, what works?
It's rare that I recommend DIY solutions, especially in gardening, because honestly, many are ineffective or even harmful.
Yeah, lots of garden hacks don't really pan out.
Right. But in the case of powdery mildew, there are actually a couple of DIY approaches that truly do seem to work, based on studies and experience.
Oh, okay. Do tell.
The first one is a baking soda solution. often referred to as the Cornell formula.
Ah, yes, the Cornell formula. Sounds official.
It does. But if you search for this, you'll quickly realize there isn't one single definitive Cornell formula. There are many similar versions out there.
Okay, so what's the general recipe?
They generally consist of the following key ingredients: about 1 gallon of water, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, maybe 1 teaspoon of vegetable oil or horticultural oil, and just a couple of drops of liquid dish soap. The soap acts as a spreader sticker.
Right. Helps it coat the leaf.
Exactly. You mix these ingredients together thoroughly and then spray them onto the affected plant, covering the leaves well.
Why baking soda?
It seems to change the pH on the leaf surface, making it less hospitable for the fungus spores to germinate. The oil might help smother spores too. It's popular because it's simple, and most people have easy access to these ingredients.
Makes sense. Any downsides?
A quick note: baking soda is sodium bicarbonate. Sodium can, over time and with repeated use, build up in the soil and potentially be harmful to some plants.
Oh.
So some gardeners opt for potassium bicarbonate, which you can often find at garden centers or online. Works similarly against mildew, but avoids the sodium issue.
Good tip. Potassium bicarbonate instead of baking soda. Okay, what's the other DIY option?
The other surprisingly effective one is milk.
Milk? Really? Just regular milk?
Yep. For this, you want to use about a 25% solution of 2% milk in water. So 1 part milk to 3 parts water.
Why 2%?
Interestingly, studies suggest non-fat or skim milk doesn't seem to work as well. The fat component might play a role, or perhaps proteins in the milk have some effect when exposed to sunlight. The exact mechanism isn't perfectly understood, but it does work.
Fascinating. So just spray the milky water.
Exactly. Spray this solution on your plants every few days, making sure to get good coverage.
Okay, baking soda or milk. But you mentioned a catch earlier.
Yes, a crucial caveat for both of these DIY solutions: neither baking soda nor milk will remove existing powdery mildew patches. They won't clean the leaf.
Right, they don't cure it.
They only prevent the spores from germinating and spreading further to new, unaffected parts of the plant.
So preventative for new infections only.
Correct. This means it's incredibly important to spray as soon as you see any signs of the disease, and both sprays need to be reapplied regularly, maybe every week or 10 days, and especially after rain or heavy watering, to maintain their effectiveness.
Got it. Be vigilant, spray early, spray often. That's incredibly useful, especially getting some practical working DIY solutions.
They can definitely help manage the situation.
But let's sit back for a moment because it still feels like we're in a bit of a maze with all this contradictory information. We learned earlier that powdery mildew isn't just one disease, but actually several different kinds of fungi. This, in essence, is the core problem, explaining why so much traditional advice on prevention and treatment feels confusing and often ineffective, right?
Absolutely. That's the heart of it.
You might be told to keep your plant dry, but for the specific species of fungi affecting your plant, maybe it actually needs to be wetter to inhibit spore release, or vice versa.
Exactly.
You don't know the specific species of fungi you have without a microscope and a mycology degree, basically. So generalized advice on humidity and watering becomes almost impossible to follow effectively. It's like trying to hit a moving target in the dark.
That's a perfect analogy. It really connects to the broader picture.
Yeah.
If you think about the general behavior of spores, high humidity, especially at night, tends to favor the creation or maturation of more spores.
Okay.
But then low humidity during the day often favors the release of those spores so they can float off and infect other leaves or plants.
So it wants both high and low humidity, just at different times.
Often, yes. Which makes controlling it via humidity almost impossible for a home gardener. Given this complex, often contradictory interplay of environmental factors and the sheer number of different powdery mildew species, I think in most cases, gardeners trying to control powdery mildew with moisture levels are fighting a battle they'll probably never truly win.
So trying to micromanage humidity is likely futile.
I think so. Frankly, I've given up trying to control humidity for powdery mildew a long time ago. I water when my plants need water. I don't worry specifically about the powdery mildew in that regard because the bottom line, the ultimate takeaway here, for me at least, is to learn to live with the disease.
Just accept it.
To a large extent, yes. It rarely, if ever, kills established plants. Think of it more as a cosmetic issue or maybe a mild energy drain rather than a death sentence for an otherwise healthy plant.
So it looks bad, but isn't usually fatal.
Exactly. It is rarely so bad that you absolutely must do something about it. And remember what we said about removing leaves. If a leaf is only partially covered with powdery mildew, just leave it alone.
Let it keep working for the plant.
Yes, it's still useful to the plant for photosynthesis. Removing it might actually do more harm than good by reducing the plant's ability to feed itself and fight back.
Okay, that makes sense. Live with it, don't panic, don't overporn.
Right. So if you really truly want to control powdery mildew in the long term, the most effective solution is often just to replace the affected plant with a better, more resistant cultivar.
Bite the bullet and upgrade the plant.
Exactly. In many cases, we're growing old cultivars, maybe heirlooms that are beautiful but susceptible, that we should perhaps consider replacing anyway if the mildew drives us crazy every year. There are so many better plants available now, with improved disease resistance built in, and then the problem simply goes away or is vastly reduced for good.
That's a very practical, long-term view. Stop fighting the symptom, change the underlying situation.
That's the most sustainable approach, I think.
Okay, so recapping here, we've learned that powdery mildew isn't one disease, which is key. Many common prevention tips are actually myths or context-dependent at best. And while some DIY solutions like baking soda or milk can help prevent spread, often the best approach is simply to adapt, live with minor infections, or ultimately upgrade your plants altogether. This has been a fascinating and incredibly clarifying deep dive.
It's always good to dig into these common garden issues and see what's really going on. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this deep dive really shows us how much popular belief or conventional wisdom in gardening and perhaps other areas of our lives too can be based on incomplete or even incorrect information.
Yeah, definitely.
It really encourages us, I hope, to question assumptions and actively seek out validated factual insights rather than just relying on what we've always been told or what sounds logical on the surface.
That's a great point. It makes you think about how much we just accept as true without truly understanding why. Absolutely. It's a powerful reminder to stay curious. Thank you so much for sharing all this insight.
My pleasure.
And thank you, our listener, for joining us on this deep dive into powdery mildew. If you found this session helpful and are looking for more aha moments that cut through the noise, be sure to follow, like, and subscribe to the deep dive wherever you listen.
We appreciate the support.
We really do. And we love hearing from you. What other myths or complex topics would you like us to explore and unpack for you next time? We're always on the hunt for fascinating subjects to deep dive into. Let us know. Happy gardening and happy learning.